Hello again, everyone. If you've been paying attention lately, you've probably noticed that I've been re-uploading the TETRIS'D episodes. Now, in large part, this was about getting the series converted to 4K, but on top of that, I wanted to get rid of as many mistakes as possible. And unfortunately, there were a lot of them. Now, every time I've posted a new collection, there have been updates, so I've been updating the series the entire time it existed. I don't have the original files, but in the full series collection right before the remaster, most of these mistakes were still present. So I'll be comparing that version to the latest 4K version. So there will be a quality difference on top of the errors. I'll also be talking about the changes, not just the mistakes. Now, for starters, this is not so much a mistake as it is just a lazy oversight, and this wasn't as much of a problem on lower resolution screens back when this series was first made. There used to be these gaps between the blocks, anywhere that two pieces came together. So I had to go in frame by frame and put in a filler layer behind everything. This took the longest, but it also, I think this is the change that brought the series together more visually cohesively, and it smoothed out the look more than anything else I did. But it also just took forever because I had to do this every single spot on every single episode, so many layers. So it was a process, and it was tedious, but it was also very much worth it. Now, I initially did this with the HD remaster, but I had to go back and do it again some more with the 4K versions because some spots that weren't previously visible became visible. And then on top of that, I also just updated the animation. Anywhere that our stickman was moving just got a general overhaul. I didn't completely redo it because I didn't want to fully change the look of the series, but this was touched up everywhere. Now that the general stuff is out of the way, I'm just going to go through the episodes in chronological order, starting with Rising, which was actually the third episode created and the fourth one released. Before we get started, though, let's meet our new friend, Red Circle. Red Circle here is going to be helping point out these mistakes, since many of them are quite small. See you soon, Red Circle! Before even getting into Rising, though, let's talk about the logo, which also saw quite a few changes. The overall look of the word Kobra remained mostly unchanged because I was already happy with it, but everything else got redone. The electricity completely changed, was animated at a higher frame rate, and obviously the font and the animation of the word editing were completely changed. But yeah, a lot of work went into this, especially with the electricity. That was surprisingly hard to do. But there were actually mistakes here, believe it or not. For some reason, and I can't believe I never noticed this, the shadow at the bottom of K just disappears. I don't know why that happened, but yep, that happened. And also, and this one is really subtle, this blade on the B clips through the masking layer and the edge of it just disappears. I know why I didn't notice this. It's one frame, but I can't believe I made that mistake. Now let's actually get into TETRIS'D. First change, aside from that gap filler on the logo, is that I added some texture to these earth shots just to make them look a little less dull. It surprisingly made the processing take way longer, but yeah, just added some texture to make it look a little more visually interesting. And these stick dudes saw some visual changes. I thought some of their posing was a little bit weird, so I just changed it. Some heads were too small, some heads were too big. So in both these shots, I just changed the stick dudes a bit. And of course, the first major change, this scene was completely visually overhauled. I don't think I need to explain much here. I just added some more motion, some more visual flair, I guess. And something I almost forgot is I also redid the fire everywhere. Anywhere there's a jet or something along those lines, it was changed. I thought it looked a little bit dull and boring originally. Also had some tangibility issues, so yeah, that was all updated. Another subtle mistake, if you look at the elbow joint here, when he sets the stickman down, a portion of the arm clips past the ball joint. This actually happened at a few spots, so keep an eye out for that. Again, really hard to see in the original lower resolution that these were made in, but once you up it to 4K, and actually even in HD, it was visible, it becomes a problem. And same thing in the next scene, also a visual overhaul. Shouldn't need to explain this one, but there was a mistake here that I can't believe how long it took me to fix. I actually tried to fix it a few times, and every time I thought I did, I somehow just didn't. If you watch this pole at the top of it disappears. It has to do with the way the scene was animated. It was just because of the way the loop worked. Yeah, it was complicated to fix that. And a more subtle mistake here is this claw. If you look, it clips past the circle. That's not supposed to happen. Super small one here. There is a dot randomly floating right here. Became really easy to see in 4K, so that had to go. And then another change to the wide shot here. That's it for Rising. Now let's move on to episode 1. Okay, looking at episode 1, it seems like there's not much here. When I made the frame wider, I did have to animate slightly farther out because a lot of the animation stopped at the edge of the frame, so that was a thing, but there weren't many mistakes here. It was mostly just the filler, which there's one shot in particular that the gap is quite large. Again though, lower resolution, this wasn't a problem, but that's pretty much it for 1. There was not much there to fix. On to episode 2, mostly the same story as 1. There weren't a lot of mistakes. I straightened out some stuff on the bot guy. If you look, he's just a little bit more symmetrical now. I'd say that was the biggest change, was getting the bot dude straightened out. Or bot woman, we don't know. Okay, I almost forgot about this. This is the first time this is pretty visible. The original circle that made the stickman's head has a bump on the side, just on the right side here. It's just slightly misshapen. If you're watching this in low resolution, this should not be visible, but yep, He had a bump on his head. For a while there, I wanted to make a joke that it's when he takes that hit in episode 1. He just left a bump on his head, but no, the bump was actually there before that. It's just this shot in 2 was where it was first visible. And small change here, instead of shooting blocks, he shoots lasers. But this was mostly done because later in episode 4, spoilers, he shoots lasers. That just seemed to make a little bit more sense. Obviously, this one's slightly less powerful than the one in 4. He's also smaller. Not by much, but he's slightly smaller. Oh, and here's a really good look at the change to the flames. If you look at the original, when the camera zooms out, it just sort of disappears. This was actually a bit of a complicated fix. I had to make 2 bot dudes at varying levels of flames and then fade between them to make this work. I had to do this a few times. And on to episode 3, it's the same thing with the flame. It's non-existent in the wide shot, but as it zooms in, it becomes visible. Same kind of thing. I had to layer and fade to make this work. Surprisingly complicated. Now, 3 actually gave me, I think, more trouble than any other episode with the fixes and updates. It had the biggest changes, as we'll see right off the bat. Originally, I thought the backgrounds were just way too boring. I didn't want to change them too much just because I would completely change the identity of the animation. Of course, this machine got completely rebuilt because I thought it looked really stupid originally. Added a nice stick spin here because I thought he was way too static originally. And one of the biggest changes in the entire series, I brought back the breakaway. Music Man Parker actually made this breakaway because people liked it so much in 2, but when I originally made episode 3, I couldn't make it fit in the way I wanted to. So when I went back and did the remaster, I'm like, I'm gonna make this fit. So here we go, we gotta change. Whole new scene, which of course makes the introduction to the next scene change, and I took this chance to make that super helpful staff disappear in a way that makes more sense, because in the original, he just drops it. I didn't like that. So this time we got the robot taking it away from him, just prying it out of his fingers. So sad. Goodbye, helpful staff. Now this is an extremely subtle mistake that only happened in the HD remaster. There are a lot of spots where the gradients that I used for the colors just couldn't decide which color to switch between, so as it zooms in or zooms out, it just pops between one color and the other. I tried to fix it, and the way I fixed it for this scene caused a ghosting on the claw here. Super small, super subtle, but yep, just fixed that. And the absolute most recent change I made is everywhere else in the series, our main character is always slightly behind the blocks that he's dodging. There are a few exceptions when he's standing on a boss or just running across something, but generally when he's dodging the blocks, he's behind them. But for some reason, in 3, during this block dodging scene, he's in front of them, and I don't like it as much, so this is quite literally the last change I made a few days ago, just before re-uploading the 4K versions. He's behind the blocks instead of in front of them. Don't know why he was ever in front of them there. And another change to the boss scene, I just thought it looked too static and too uninteresting in the original, so I just added some stuff to make it a little more interesting. And this was a fun one to figure out. I never liked the way the hand transformation looked at the end of this fight, so I had to redo that. And in the remaster, I finally redid it. And I am much happier with the way it came out. Also took that opportunity in the remaster to redo this escape scene because, again, it was very dull and boring in the original. Never liked it. I am so much happier with this new scene. On to episode 4. Again, not a lot of changes here, just some visual fixes. There was that gradient issue again on the ship here. Kind of a complicated one to fix, but I made it work. There's some spots I didn't mention where that gradient thing happened, but not worth going over every single one. In this title shot, there was actually a mistake in the original upload, so I'm gonna have to go get a clip of that straight from YouTube because I don't have that anymore. The blocks dropping on this shot here, they just appear out of nowhere. It's like I forgot to fill that out and nobody ever noticed it. That is still there on the original upload for TETRIS'D 4. So yeah, go look. Oh, here we got the arm clipping past that ball joint again. This one's actually way more visible than it was in Rising. Again, this happened a few times. I think it also happened in 3. Now this scene keeps changing. I'm gonna go over every version of it. Now before I continue, he is not getting hit here. There's a cloud of smoke. He's dodging behind it. I don't know why everybody thinks he's taking hits here, but he's not. Okay, so let's just clear that one up. Anyways, in the original, so there's just a cloud of smoke. I thought it looked a little dull for how much is going on there. No debris, no nothing. So in the HD remaster, I updated it, added some debris and scorching on the ground. I think it looks way better, but I didn't like this gap behind him. So when it came to the 4K version, I took that opportunity to update it. Again, small change, but I think it just makes things look a little bit better. And one of the last changes in 4 is I added a door here. I think it just looks better. Honestly, that's the only reason. Originally, there actually was supposed to be a door here, but I couldn't make it work the way I wanted to. This still isn't what I wanted originally, but I think this is better with it than without it, so yeah, I'm happy with that. And the door, of course, reappears on the way out. You lose the glow, but I actually think it looks better without the glow. Changed the 10 years later title card. And one more mistake on the way out. It's super brief. I think it's like 5 or 6 frames, but the background here, it just got a gap so you can see the white behind the background. Right? It's again, super small, super hard to see. Right there. There it is. And I think that's it for the major mistakes. Again, there are a lot of subtle things there. Most are just variations of the things I just described. But I had to do so many updates, so many changes. I'm sure there's stuff I forgot in there because, again, I've been doing this for years. But yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Been wanting to talk about that for a long time because people don't seem to realize how many changes were actually made. Apparently I don't either, since, again, I'm sure I forgot a bunch. Anyways, thanks for watching, and stick around for season 2 because it's finally coming. Again, it's going to be a while because there's a lot of work, but it's coming. See you later.